We're here with Rachel Woodlee, our Rhodes Scholar. Rachel, you are our sixth Wofford student to be a Rhodes Scholar. You are our second student athlete, and you're our first female Rhodes Scholar. So tell us what the last 48 hours has been like for you.
I guess in a word, stressful. Well, I actually headed up to St. Louis on Friday morning, and I had a little bit of time in the afternoon, so I got to do, some stereotypical tourist stuff. I went to the Arch, tried to forget about the fact that I had a life-altering interview, and that night they actually had a reception for us, so we just got to meet the other candidates and talk with the judges. And then the next morning we had all of the scary, important things. So I actually had an interview at 8:40. So I got up, it was Central Time, so it wasn't that bad, but I still got up pretty early, read the newspaper, made sure I wasn't completely ignorant of anything that had happened overnight, and then headed over for that. And then after that, there was a lot of waiting. They had 13 candidates, so we had to go through everyone with their interviews. And then we all went out to lunch together, which was fun. Yeah.
So what time did you actually get in and talk to the committee?
Well, at 8:40 I talked to them initially, but they had told us that there was a possibility of the second round of interviews, and hadn't told us when that would be. So at about 3:30, the head judge came into the room and told us that they were going to randomly bring in a couple candidates for second interviews. And we figured out later that they had called us in alphabetical order, but at the time everyone was so stressed out we didn't know because there was no indication of what they would talk to us about. So because of the alphabetical order and the fact that I'm way down there, I was the last one for the second interviews. And then after that, they deliberated for about another 2 hours, and then finally told us around 5:30 p.m.
Well, for the rest of the people who have not been interviewed for Rhodes, I know you and I have both gone through the same experience.
Obviously.
But tell us what it was like. What kind of questions did they ask you? What was that experience like?
They can ask you anything. They obviously want to ask you about your area of expertise and the project you're interested in carrying out, but they also want to get an idea of how well-rounded you are. So for example, in my second interview, I was speaking about Chinese education in America, and one of the judges leans forward and says, on a slightly different topic, what do you think was the most important scientific discovery of the 20th century?
Wow, in the middle of that?
Yes, sir. So I sat there for a second, composed myself, and said, I'm going to take a second to think so I don't sound like an idiot. Science is not my area of expertise. I got my gen ed requirements out of the way and got out of there. But I ended up actually saying, I said, this doesn't sound exactly like a hard science answer, but I really think that the invention of mass production and the ways in which you can mass-produced consumer goods has really altered the way we live, and she sort of gave me a funny look because she went to MIT and that particular judge is very into hard sciences, and I said, I didn't know what to do, so I was backpedaling, and I said, well, this isn't a very hard science answer. I can come up with something a bit more, in the fields of chemistry or biology, and she said, well, I guess that's an interesting answer, and I was just shrinking inside. But in the end, she said she thought it was a very interesting one. So
good. Well, obviously, she liked it. Mm-hmm. Well, tell us what was it like. I understand you got grilled on your experiences in China. I
did. Basically, the project I'm applying for is a Master's of Philosophy in Modern Chinese Studies. So it's a bridge degree between history and culture, politics, economics, everything. So they wanted to test my expertise in a lot of different areas as they pertain to China. And then they brought up Tibet, which I was sincerely hoping they wouldn't bring up, because for those of us who are advocating, closer work with the Chinese government, that's obviously a sensitive topic. So we talked about Tibet and the government's response to Tibet for a while. Also talked about different cultural phenomena. It was very conversational. They try not to be too intimidating. They realize the process itself is obviously scary. So it was a good experience.
Well, Rachel, you signed here to play volleyball. That was, I think, what first drew you to Wofford. But how important was that in your decision to come to Wofford?
It was incredibly important. It had always been a goal of mine to play Division I athletics, and my father's always told me that it's the name on the diploma and not the name on the roster that's most important. So at Wofford, the mix of academics and athletics was just absolutely perfect for me. And in addition, the coaching staff here and everyone I had met that's involved with athletics really was just so warm and welcoming. So it was an easy decision for me.
Well, and not many athletes have the opportunity to travel abroad, but because of the non-traditional season, your coaches worked with you and allowed you to miss that spring volleyball season, and that helped you get the experience in the travel abroad component that you needed for the Rhodes.
Wofford's so big on study abroad, and the athletics department is definitely included in that. Coach Helly has a rule that any volleyball player can go abroad the spring of their junior year. So for me, as I was thinking of pursuing a major in Chinese, obviously it's important to actually go to China and be immersed in the culture and the language. So that was amazing. And then in addition, he's also, allowed me to go abroad for a summer to India and interim trips to Peru and then to China again. So I've had the best of both worlds. I've been able to play the sport I love and also be able to see the world. So it's been a great experience.
Well, great. And as a double major, how hard has that been to maintain your grades and play volleyball?
As counterintuitive as it sounds, I think that being an athlete actually really forces you to learn how to manage your time and to really make academics a priority. For me, we've always had practice in the evening, so my goal was always to finish as much of my homework as I could before practice, so I would have some time to relax afterwards. And the Chinese department here has actually structured the major to make it easy to pursue a double major as well. So they've been able to work with me on transferring credits I had in China and doing things like that to make sure that I could graduate with both degrees.
Well, good. Well, now I understand that, and I've heard this, I hope it's true, that you have finished so far through your Wofford career, you've yet to receive a B, is that correct?
That is correct. I still have a 4.0, and hopefully at the end of the year this will continue. So.
Well, now we have something in common. I went through my 4 years of college, and I never had a B either.
Oh, did you have A's though?
Like I said, I went through my 4 years of college, and I never had a B either.
Okay, valid statement.
Which is why I'm not sitting in your chair. So tell us about, when do you start? Tell us about the future. How excited are you? Tell us when you go over to Oxford.
Well, I actually have a meeting with the Rhodes Secretary for the United States next week to talk about specifically what program I want to apply to. But I'm planning on applying for the Masters of Philosophy in Modern Chinese Studies, as I said before. So that would give me 3 semesters at Oxford and 1 semester back in Beijing, which I'm very excited about. I loved Beijing. It's a great city. And the way the Oxford terms work, to my understanding, I actually wouldn't go until about next October. So I'll have some time after I graduate to maybe do an internship, get ready for that. So.
Now, a tall volleyball player in Beijing, do you stand out?
Oh, like a sore thumb. Oh my gosh. One of my favorite stories from Beijing was I got a cold, so I went to like a pharmacy to get some therapeutic tea because they actually have some really great traditional Chinese medicine, and I kind of wanted to experiment a little bit with it. And the ladies in the store were commenting on my height, and one of them said, "Oh, my cousin lives in the city where Yao Ming was born. I could set you up on a date with him." And so I told her, I said, I think he might be married. And she said, "Oh, it's fine. You're a pretty girl from the West. He'd go on a date with you." So it definitely led to some interesting interactions with Chinese people.
Have you thought far enough in advance? I know this is all overwhelming, but postgraduate work, I mean, when you finish with the Rhodes Scholarship and you're done with your trip to Beijing and Oxford, what are your plans then?
I would really like to come back to the U.S. and work to help more people understand modern China. I really feel that with the way our economy and our politics and everything are very interrelated with the Chinese government, the level of just misunderstanding there is, or just confusion about what China's actually like, I think that if we can sort of educate more people about China's culture and history and the way modern China is, then it would really help us in the future as we try to work more closely with the Chinese government.
Rachel, part of this process, it's a culmination of a 4-year process. Our academic dean, David Wood, wanted to start a program to try to get more Wofford students to be competitive for the Rhodes Scholarship. and enlisted a cadre of folks on campus to start in that. And I believe, if correct me if I'm wrong, you were identified early on in your freshman year as one of those who had Rhodes potential.
Yes, sir. Dr. Lawton, actually, he worked with a group of 16 of us my freshman year, and Dr. Lawton's a very mathematically oriented person, so he actually wrote an algorithm and applied it to our transcripts. So I thought that was kind of funny that he identified us through that, but he really did help us in getting to work with people at Wofford who were very influential. He was the one who put me in touch with Mr. Cochran, who helped me to do my internship in India. And he was really invaluable in just constantly encouraging me and telling me that he thought I was the type of person that could do something like this. It was one of those things that when they first told me, I said, well, that would be great, but me? I'm not quite sure about that, because people who get the Rhodes are just ridiculously accomplished. So I was honored to even be selected for an interview, even selected at Wofford to be able to apply. The fact that I got it still hasn't really sunk in. I'm waiting for that part to fall into place. So.